Welcome to Command Control Power, the longest-running Apple consulting podcast. For over 10 years, we've produced weekly episodes featuring epic tales of tech support and troubleshooting, discussions about managing our clients and businesses, and interviews with colleagues and vendors. For our pro listeners, we offer Patreon-exclusive shows. This private podcast feed is tailor-made for IT professionals looking for advice and guidance on the more challenging aspects of running your practice, working with your clients and employees, and managing your fleets of devices. For a modest monthly contribution, you'll unlock a world of deeper Apple expertise, meaningful connections, and a shared passion for Apple technology. Simply visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support. And now on to the show. Welcome to another episode of Command Control Power. I'm welcoming you here, but I may not be the one to bid you adieu at the end of the show. I'm here only because Jerry called me a baby and said he introduced me to a little Showbiz phrase, the show must go on. I had never heard that one before.
No, it's a first for you because you're so young. That's why you're not familiar with these old-timey expressions.
And for the record, I told Joe not to show up. I just want to point that out.
That is true. That is true. So here we are.
You're sick, and I'm sick of doing the show, so that makes us even. How do you we were talking about how we would end the broadcast, because Joe typically records the broadcast and ends the broadcast. And I was going to make reference to the fact, I don't know if your kids do this, Sam, but they love slamming the lid of the laptop.
Yes.
Like when they're done, who does that?
I've seen that.
In my world, if you're done, you might close it gently or you might walk away. And my wife doesn't do this because she knows better now, but they love to go bam.
Yeah.
Do your kids do that?
Do it?
Did she have an incident with her laptop?
Yeah, you said she knows better now. What does that mean?
Because she's lived with me all these 20 years.
She doesn't want to hear you grumble after. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The objective is to see if they can break the screen. That's the whole objective.
I think at this point, I can not only identify the sound of maybe which model they're slamming the lid of, if I hear it in a coffee shop or something, but when they drop the phone, I can tell. I don't think that was an iPhone. I don't feel it in my gut. I don't feel it's not my department. So I think I can almost identify that. Before
Joe drops off the grid, and Joe, I think he should just walk away. From the mic and leave the screen live.
All right.
And he's in jail.
Maybe poke your head in once in a while to see how we're doing. But while we're all here, I just want to say, and I apologize in advance if you have been a recent Patreon subscriber and we haven't mentioned you. But two recent Patreon subscribers, John Motor, who we've known for a long time. He's been in the Apple community. He has made some changes. He's back. He's doing some consulting work. Dare I say, welcome aboard, which I always hate that expression. John, nice to have you back. Thank you. Yeah. And also to Daniel Bennett, who recently joined Patreon. Now, while you're listening to this and you hear these guys talk, Sam, Joe, and myself, Patreon, you're thinking these guys must be rolling in the dough. We've got a significant amount of downloads. We know that from our statistics on a weekly basis. It's a sizable number, but we have a small community of Patreon subscribers and we love you to death. And most of these Patreon subscribers have been with us for the very, very beginning. And so we thank you for that. But you might think, if I join and I'm not joining at a certain level or something like that, that it doesn't make a difference. Believe me, any person who joins Patreon, it does move the needle for us and does helps Sam afford like a painting for that brick wall behind him.
Or some meds for Joe.
Or some meds for Joe, right. Joe looks chilly right now. He could use a hat. He could use a scarf. Maybe.
I'm all over the place, hot, cold.
So I just wanted to mention that at the top of the show. And the other thing I wanted to mention before Joe goes away, and this is not a hooray for Joe and a hooray for me story. And this is something that I just want to say that Sam and I and Joe extend the same courtesy back and forth to us. But if you're listening to this and you're in a area where there's other consultancies, if you don't have a good working relationship with them, I encourage that you do, because from time to time, it's very helpful to compare notes, because the Mac community is small and there's lots of people who use a Mac and there's lots of people who don't. And chances are Joe's going to have a client that I ran into or vice versa. So recently, this client that Joe might work with has reached out to me. He's done this once more in the past. And it just helps to just say, hey, you know what? we're the same as other Apple consultancies that I know about. And we do our work very much the same way, best practice. So the grass isn't always greener on the other side of the street. And so I just as soon pass on a client that might be sniffing around looking for somebody else, because that's just what I do. And I would imagine you guys would probably, at least at the very least, ask me like, oh, have you ever run into this person? This person's in your area. Have you ever seen them before? And being candid and sharing that information helps all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. I think if you're not a good fit for me, you may not be a good fit for Jerry or Sam, and vice versa. In fact, I know there's one that goes a ways back, Sam, that you inherited from me. It was this 50-50 toss-up. I forget if you had already been there, and then you said, hey, by the way, do you know this person? You know, you went ahead with it, and I gave you the full disclosure, but I said, be my guest, but just know going in. And I think it wasn't the best fit, it turned out, right?
Yeah. Was that the one where I found your Mac helpmate on there?
That's it. I know. I wonder if that was the last time that ever happened.
It might have been. And it was decades ago at this point. But yes. Right. Yeah, we've had situations like that. And we're always open and candid with each other. But yeah, I would agree. It also maybe not necessarily always in your area, too. Sometimes I've connected with people in different areas that can help me remotely or vice versa. So there's that as well.
Yeah, but sometimes it's contentious. Sometimes if you're in the same city, let's say, and there's other Apple consultancies, but it really does help to open that line of communication, because it just cuts down on all the back and forth that you might have with a difficult client, and you could save somebody those hassles if you've already lived through them. Yeah,
for sure. Well, so with that, you may have to find somebody to replace me for the next hour here, because I'm going to bow out. Maybe I'll just remove myself from the layout here. And
okay, I don't want to see you go dark. Can you just walk off camera?
Jerry's got so many requests for you. Like, you're sick. Go.
I guess I could just mute. Yeah, I'll figure something out for you, Jerry.
Maybe like a picture of Elmo or something like that.
Have a good show, guys.
If you're listening to this and you're saying video, we've been broadcasting our YouTube streams live to the Patreon subscribers, so you could watch us live, and then eventually a few weeks later we actually release the show. So sometimes you'll see a brand new show that'll appear on YouTube and it'll say recorded 2 weeks ago. It's annoying, but it's the most released show. So you can see all these in video. It's just a matter of waiting for the release date. Sam, I want to throw the ball to you. It's a little early for holiday gifts, but did you treat yourself over the weekend? Anything you'd like to share with the listening audience?
Nothing new, especially on the technical side. My wife and I were talking yesterday actually about gifts, and we don't usually spend a lot on each other. We're more about experiences than gifts. So we talked and we're like, let's just do something fun for a weekend together, and that'll be our gift to each other for the holidays, because she's not like the type that needs a diamond bracelet, and I'm not the type that needs a new car or anything like that. So we're just like, we'd like to go out and have fun and do things and see new experiences or see a show. Yeah.
You both do live in luxury. We do know that for fact.
Speaking of which, speaking of luxury, for some reason, my wife was just driving her car. I'm looking out the window because it's not in the driveway. She just got hit in the parking lot. If I looked distracted a moment ago, I was texting my wife because somebody hit the car. And I'm like, I'm like, that's just wonderful. So
now, is this the Maserati or the Lamborghini that got hit?
Maserati. It was our Tesla sedan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that's about $1 million to fix, right? Because it's all one part, pretty much, the body, right?
Just change out the whole body. It's like one of those Matchbox cars with the change out tops.
My dad, by the way, he's 91. God bless him. He still has all his marbles, and he lives by himself in Vermont. And he went and he bought a Tesla. What's the K car? What is it called, Sam?
The most recent one. My friend used to have a K car growing up. Probably the Model Y, which is like it's like a bubble top. Did he buy that one?
I don't know. There's a lot of window up top.
Yeah. So that's like mine too. But yeah, it's either the Model 3 or the Model Y. I doubt he went with the Model S. That's 90 grand or something.
No, bubble top, I think of Lowly the Worm from the books. Lowly the Worm, and the one's driving the mouse in the banana car and the worm driving the children's books.
I don't think
Richard Scarry is the name of the author. All right. I got, and I couldn't get it. I really wanted one, and I'm not sure why I wanted one. The Mac Mini came out, and for some reason I needed to have one. Now I do have a headless Mac Mini running in my, shall we call it, a server rack. I got a network attached storage device in there, but I do email filtering. I mentioned that in another show on my headless Mac, because I get lots of spam, right? So I have all my accounts there, and it is the first place that the email hits. I do use Spam Sieve. And so anyway, I had an M2 Mac Mini with 256 gigabyte hard drive. And so I ended up selling that to my educational client and someone who is one of the admissions people. So I sold it to them for $300, got them a monitor and put a little package together for them. And I got the entry-level Mac Mini M4 with 256 gigs of hard drive space because I don't need that much. Yeah, so it seems a little snappier, a little faster, but...
And what do you run on that headless Mac Mini at home? Do you have a media server or music?
No, I have a Plex server, and I have something called Roon, which serves up my music, ROON, and those both run in the Synology. So the only thing I'm really using the headless Mac Mini for, besides downloading illegal content using VPNs.
I still have my Synology. I used to have a Mac Mini. I don't really have, that was back in the day when I used, I can't remember the name. I can't remember the name of the product that was like the old home automation stuff that ran on my Mini. It just escaped me, but that was my main reason for running that. And that was running my, like I had a few lights and stuff off of it and some light switches. And then I just got rid of it. I didn't need it anymore. I moved over to Philips lights and things like that. So I didn't need my Mini.
So you're thinking of a Homebridge and Scripted are the two.
No, but there was one like prior to real home automation. It was like a janky product. Man,
the X11 or X10?
Yeah, but it was like there was an app that ran on the Mac that I can't remember. It's been so many years, but
so I do run Scripted, which is an open source home automation thing that does talk to the Apple Home. A couple of cameras show up on the Apple Home app and stuff like that. But I'm using Ubiquiti cameras like you are for my home.
Long-time listener in the chat, Joe Saponari, just said Indigo was the name of the software. I think that was
I thought he was sick. Yeah. You can't have it both ways, Joe. Either in or out. You're either live, but you can't be...
Yeah, I like him as an audience member. This is cool.
Oh, goodness.
He can just chime in when he wants. He's chilling. Good for Joe.
Yeah. A little bird told me maybe something else might be arriving soon from the Amazon man. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, TV. Yeah. So is that what you were getting at? Okay.
You're living the dream, Sam. I'm just scraping the bottom.
My bedroom. This is actually funny. The TV in my bedroom has had vertical lines for quite a while on the right side of the screen. Just a few lines where it was like, okay, the lines are there. I can still watch TV. I don't need something new. I watch the TV in my room very rarely. So I was like, fine. Then one day it just started to get thicker and more lines. So then at some point, I don't want to say a third, but maybe a quarter of the right side of the screen was just not visible anymore. So if a character walked over to that side or something happened, I was like, oh, I think he got shot, but I can't really see what's going on. So that was going on for a while. And you just live with it, or at least I did. I didn't really care enough. And then maybe a couple weeks ago, I go to turn it on, and it goes white for a second and then just nothing. And so you can see that there's the backlight there. It's a little blackish and it's just gone. There's no picture. There's nothing. So I finally had to bite the bullet. I waited as long as I could. And I bought a new TV for downstairs. I bought an LG C3 TV, which is last year's OLED model. I was learning a lot because I don't know enough about TVs, but they have the B4, C4, G4, all these different versions of the 2024 model. And it felt like the B and C versions of that TV were fine for my liking. The G version was like $1,000 more. And I was like, I couldn't even tell if the picture was different in my own house. So I was like, screw that. So then I started looking up and researching the current C4 and B4 models. C4 was like $500 more. And I watched a few reviews and it's okay. It seems like it could be worth it. Better picture quality from an angle and no glare. And then,
just to be clear, you're going to move the downstairs one into your bedroom and this will be the new downstairs one.
Yeah, exactly. So if that one,
because it's like you bought one that's like 100 inches or some crazy number like that.
No, 77. But that would be cool, 100-inch TV. So at that point, then I read up the C3 to the C4 was not that big of an improvement. So I was like, okay, it's $300 cheaper. I'm going with last year's LG C3 OLED TV, and that's what I purchased, although I haven't gotten it yet. So
yeah,
I can give you a review.
Yeah, I asked you for a link, and it sure looked like Amazon was blowing the doors off in terms of the discounts. There was like an extra $200 on, depending on the model, beyond a normally discounted price, and that the price has gone back up. I'm sure you'd look too subsequently. So that deal has gone.
Cyber Monday or whatever.
Yeah, that's great. That's exciting.
Cyber Prime Day, they call it. Or something.
So yeah, we'll want to report. And like I mentioned to you,
want to report.
I do, because we have this old 55-inch that was the former owners of our house left behind. And I think they were intending to sell it to us. And they said, "Are you interested in the TV?" And my wife and I looked at each other and we're like, nah. So they just left it for us. And that's all we've been using. And it's good, but it's this old Sony. I sent you a picture of it. It's this old Sony boxy thing. It's LED, but I don't know. It's just bad. It's got to go.
Yeah. And I wonder, can you tell? I mean, maybe I'm just not, I don't have the right eyes for it, but if you look like an LED, LCD, OLED, QLED, can you really tell?
No, I bet if you and I did that for a living, we'd be able to tell.
Yeah. I don't see I don't know. The only thing I didn't want to do is get an older type of the LCD and stuff like that. And then I looked up the differences between OLED and QLED, and it seems like OLED was better. So I went with that. And we'll see. Maybe some audience members know more about TVs than I do. It can help me out.
Yeah, the technology changes so quickly too. It's like whatever you buy, it's like computers. A year from now, it's going to be not as good as what's out now.
Then I'll move it up to the bedroom.
Yeah. So that's all I did, just circling back to the Mac Mini. And I've got no technology story to share with that. It just onboarded really easily. I do have a horrible migration story.
Oh, God.
And I'll try to make it slow.
Migrations are horrible anyway, but go ahead.
Yeah. And I've never had, I know there's other people listening to the show, because we've had people write in who've had bad experiences with Migration Assistant. But over the years, I've found Migration Assistants 99.9% of the time does a great job. So I get this cold call from this person. And again, this is the real collapsed Reader's Digest version. And he said that he bought his iMac through guidance from Apple. He called them, he got it from the store online, and they delivered an iMac to him that had a 256 gig hard drive. And then he told me that the music and the pictures didn't make it over. And Apple told him that he had to buy an external hard drive and move the pictures and the music and photos to the external hard drive. And I told him that's no way to run an airline. If you're not price sensitive because you just got this, I would go through the trouble of returning this and getting yourself something that you can grow into, get a 1 terabyte drive. So that's what he did. He sent them back and forth. But in the meantime, I wanted to take a look at exactly what was going on, like how much data he had. And the guy tried really hard to accommodate me. When you would deal with people who are very inexperienced with computers, sometimes they're talking about terabytes and it's gigabytes, and the numbers, they're reading space available instead of space used. And you can ask them the same question 3 times and you get 3 different answers.
Yeah.
And for the life of me, I could not connect to this High Sierra, no matter what I did, using Splashtop SOS, which is my go-to app. And I've never seen it not work like this. So I couldn't connect to it. But that's what I surmised, was he had a hard drive, right? It makes sense, right? The data was bigger than 250 gig. And when Migration Assistant started to do its thing, he got guidance from Apple and he couldn't move over all the data. And they told him, oh, you're going to have to move this to a secondary drive, which is poor advice to begin with, right?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. So I worked with him for a while on the phone, and I think I even tried to have him, I think I put it together that maybe he had enough space. Oh, no, I know what it was. So we did a preliminary call. We put a pin in it. He called me back. The new one arrived. So we tried to do a migration over the phone. And when it would assess the music and the photos, we were getting really low numbers with Migration Assistant.
That's weird.
Because he was doing it via Wi-Fi. So I made sure that his High Sierra was completely up to date. His Sequoia iMac was completely up to date. Yet, for whatever reason, the Sequoia iMac could not see all the data that was on his drive. And I literally spent another 2 hours with him. So total time remote was 3 hours. And true to fashion, I only billed him for 1 hour, right?
That's a Jerry billing system, yeah.
But I told him,
66% off.
I'm going to have to come on site. So I go on site, and I did make the assessment that he probably didn't need to upgrade to the 1 terabyte drive, but because he had less than 250 gigs. And I could see the photos and I could see the music. Like the photos, for example, was like 45 gigs. And that just wasn't loading in previously with Migration Assistant. And I was sure that he was reading me that data correctly. So I took out my trusty cables, USB-C to Thunderbolt, and we Thunderbolted in, ran the same thing. Now we're not doing it over Wi-Fi and using my cables, same issue. It showed hardly anything for music. So then I tried to repair the High Sierra drive through the recovery partition. This went on. Like now I'm thinking like I'm only going to be at the guy's site for an hour. And now we're going into like hour 2. And so it just wouldn't repair. It wouldn't complete the catalog assessment. So I thought his drive was maybe going sideways. But ultimately, every time we would try to boot, the old machine like booted up right away. So it wasn't like exhibiting the behavior of a failing hard drive.
Can I ask you something? So Migration Assistant was showing the low numbers. Did you already say, did you look at the numbers locally as well to see? Yeah. And they were also showing, okay. That's
no, locally they were showing like he had 45 gigs.
Okay.
Yeah, it was so just the new machine couldn't assess all the data. So how do I solve this? I can't repair the drive for whatever reason. Disk utility. I tried Onyx at one point. Have you ever used that?
Yeah, love Onyx.
Utility. Yeah. And Onyx did the same thing. So every time it would hang during disk repair, and we waited a long time for disk utility repair. Off of the recovery partition, I waited over a half hour because we've seen it be really long.
Yeah.
And so this guy was incapable of taking instructions to do things on his own. So I'm like, how the hell am I going to figure this out?
Yeah.
So ultimately, he had this external drive. Oh, and when it would take a time machine backup of the old machine, time machine wouldn't represent all the data that was on the machine.
Whoa. Okay.
And the other thing I noticed was before we did a nuke and pave on the new iMac, the actual migrated data wouldn't let us move any data to the desktop. So I knew there was something really off in the user. Yeah. But anyway, so long story short, I took that drive that he had purchased, that Apple guided him to purchase. I plugged it into the High Sierra machine. I reformatted it, OS Extended journaled, and I ran a Carbon Copy Cloner backup. Carbon Copy Cloner saw all the data. I plugged it in. We had him do now I'm back home. We had him do another migration, and the drive that Carbon Copy Cloner copied identified all the data, this time with Migration Assistant, and we were up and running. The only other trouble I had was I still couldn't get Splashtop SOS to start running again. It couldn't connect to the servers. It would never present a 9-digit code. Yeah. So I had to put on an instance of Adigy on his machine. Gotcha. And then I could use Live Desktop to connect to him. But that was the only way I could connect to his machine. And so luckily I use Adigy as our MDM here. And that would save my bacon. Other than I was like this close to having to go back again to just finish up his migration, just to guide him through the other steps. But it was a crazy. Sorry, that was such a long story.
No, that's crazy though.
Yeah, Joe will be proud of me because I went long. But
you spun a yarn. Nice work.
I've never seen it not fail in that way.
Yeah, I'm interested in the fact that both Migration Assistant and Time Machine showed incorrect numbers. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, that's got to be permissions. And then Carbon Copy Cloner's like, no, we're all good. I can see everything.
Yeah.
And when you brought it over, everything's acting perfectly fine.
Yeah, all his pictures were there, all his music, his playlists, everything was perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kooky, as they say. Unless like it fixed any kind of permissions issues in the new OS, it does a check. I don't know.
Even like before I decided to do the Carbon Copy Cloner, I thought, okay, I'm going to just put the High Sierra machine in target disk mode, and I'm going to just copy over these folders that he needs. And I, of course, said ignore the permissions on the drive. So that was... Do you want to share Joe's comment?
Joe Seminary in the chat says I'd give that story 2 yards.
All right. He doesn't sound that sick to me, Joe. You can't be in the chat. No, you can't. It doesn't cut both ways. He's either in or he's out. He's out. He's in the team, on the team, or off the team.
Right now, he's our only commenter, so we need him.
That's because we're recording this in the middle of the day. And by the way, I thought I would share this piece of confidential information. I'm in my dog pajama bottoms right now.
Nice. Good thing we only got the upper half.
Yeah, good thing. Yeah.
Oh my God. That's funny. I can't believe that story. I gotta say, I haven't done a migration myself in quite some time, but they always frustrated me. Mm-hmm. Back in the days when like you'd have to plug in a cable and it would take a really long time. I used to go to this client's house every summer. I've talked about it on probably a show 8 years ago, but every summer he would get upgrades for his kids going to college or whatever. And I would do the upgrades, and I would drive 40 minutes to his house, plug everything in, start the whole process, and then just leave for a couple of hours. I was like, I don't want to sit here and just watch paint dry. So I would go work at a cafe or something, or
I've done that.
Coffee shop. Yeah.
And I would normally not charge him for the time that I was away.
Yeah.
Because I would go somewhere. Yeah.
We agree with that. If I used to tell him that, I'm like, if I'm sitting here, I'm going to charge you. So let me go. And otherwise I got to listen to, he was a nice guy, but then I have to engage in like small talk with somebody for 2 hours. That's probably my hell.
It can sometimes be pretty challenging.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was just the damnedest thing, and it ate up so much time. So I did get compensated for coming on site. I decided to bill him for the additional remote support. So I didn't really get hurt on this job. But initially, that first 3-hour stint, I only charged him for an hour because it shouldn't be their fault that this Apple stuff isn't working. You know,
this Apple stuff.
He had guidance over the phone, and they just left him. I can't blame them, but he wasn't savvy enough to know that everything didn't quite make it.
Right.
Until he got off the phone with them, and they thought migration assistant, as long as they've got High Sierra, it's going to work. So why not?
Yeah.
They would have made the assumption that it was working.
I would have loved to have taken a look at that drive if you had it, like just to look at permissions and investigate it a little bit. That piques my curiosity. But as long as you got the job done, that's great. Apparently you have a printer firmware debacle as well, is what I'm hearing.
Oh, that was a holiday. That was a holiday debacle.
That was over Turkey Day?
Yeah. So we're recording this after Thanksgiving. You're listening to this after Thanksgiving, of course, before the holidays. And we have relatives. We're calling them relatives. They're actually our kids' godparents, but they're not bloodline relatives. And we've gone there to their home in New Hope, Pennsylvania, ever since the kids were infants. And we stay overnight, like 1 or 2 nights, and we come back usually on Black Friday or something like that. And if they have any tech issues, and normally they're not problematic, I do run Adigy on their computers for them. So generally speaking, if they do need some support, I can help them. But they said that they were getting a pop-up from their Brother printer firmware update. So I'm like, yeah, we could do that. So one of the things you need to do to get to the login screen through the web of the Brother printer is you need a password, either a ubiquitous password that's available on the internet, or with these particular newer series of Brother printers, you need the password off the back. Yeah. So the printer itself was running wirelessly, and it was in a pull-out drawer that was underneath a counter, a flat counter. You could get at it by pulling out the drawer, and then they would pull out the little leaf so that if they were going to print something, it was on-demand printing. Yeah. And when they were done, they would push in the leaf and close the drawer, and that was it. And there wasn't much clearance between the countertop and because it was in the upper drawer. There are 2 drawers. It was in the upper drawer. Okay, I need the password. So I go to lift it out, and I tilted a little bit, and I had my wife, my tech assistant, I said, can you take a picture of the label in the back rather than have her read off the serial number, write it down. So as she's taking a picture of it with my camera, I've got the thing just slightly tilted. And all of a sudden I look down, and there's not just drips. There was a trail of black ink down my And I had different pajama bottoms on because I think it was in the evening. My black watch pajama bottoms, and if you know anything about tartans, the black watch was good because it doesn't really show the black ink that badly, and it went down it was on my socks, and they have a runner that ran underneath the cabinet, and there's this big spot on this runner.
Oh my God.
So we put it back in the drawer for a moment. We pull back the runner, and they've got hardwood floors, and there's this big black spot all over
the hardwood?
On the hardwood floor.
Oh, Jerry.
The good thing was that they didn't use OEM cartridges, and this may have been a blessing and a curse, or it was operator error. So the good thing was when we pulled back the runner, we were able to clean it almost immediately off the hardwood floor. So it didn't penetrate. It was like they were finished floors. So it cleaned right up. It was pretty amazing. And then the runner was an old runner. And this is why the homeowners, our godparents, they're in the other room. And my wife goes, I think we need you guys out here. I'm like, no, don't call them in here. So without missing a beat, I cut the runner. It was a synthetic runner for the dog.
Not like a rug, like a real like.
Well, it was a rug, but it was But it was
take out like a switchblade and you just cut it.
No, a pair of scissors, and I cut the whole black. I didn't cut it in a circle to cut out the black spot. I think you or Joe might have said that when I did. So we just cut off about 3 or 4 feet from the runner because it was big.
My God.
It was like this. Here, let me get in the camera. It was big.
Wow.
So they come back in and crisis has been averted. And my wife goes, it exploded. That's not what way that my wife sounds, but it's one of my voices.
Your impersonation.
So I said,
sure, she appreciates
I was very
that.
calm by this point because everything was under control. And I said, well, no, it didn't explode. Because exploded. You think of shrapnel all over the kitchen.
Yeah.
And it was in the kitchen too, of all things. I don't know if I mentioned that. I said, for whatever reason, those tanks started to leak. And he said, I know, I just replaced them. And I said, oh. And then his wife said, but we didn't use the brother model. We got some third party. So it could have been just these third party cartridges. And it's one of those Echo Ink black tanks. So it's the bigger, fatter tank.
Yeah.
Either that, or if you've ever replaced cartridges for a client or on your own inkjet printer, if you still have one, there's that little plastic cap and the actual inkjet Pico, whatever it is, pierces the plastic. It's not like you have to peel off that plastic from the top of it. It's
got like spikes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we know that you don't have to peel that off. And I'm thinking, I didn't check.
Did he peel it?
He might have peeled the whole thing off. So it was like an open tank, just waiting for some knucklehead like myself to spill it. So it got in the little door, the trap door. We're wiping it out and stuff like that. But it crisis averted. But it was a big mess that we got to clean up pretty quick.
Did they see that you cut the runner? Were they like, oh,
Yeah, they were cool. Yeah, they were cool with it because it was at least we knew that because we got a similar runner in our old house around the same time period. And my wife remembered we bought them at the same time. And it's about 17 years old and they were fine with all that.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah. But it could have been bad if it stained the floor because it's black and it was one of those regular typical oak floors that's light colored. So it could have been bad. It could have been really bad.
So the ultimate question, which is, did you actually update the firmware?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I had the password. Yeah, I had the password, updated the firmware. The printer wasn't, my fear was that after this happened, it may have spilled inside the mechanism and it wasn't like printing smeary pages now, but the printing looked perfect. So that's what I think happened. Either it was just, because it was not an OEM, original equipment manufacturer. I know you know what that means. And it was a janky cartridge tank, or he peeled off in ignorance, we'll call it, the plastic, which is supposed to stay intact to keep that from happening. I would imagine.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time something like that. That would be big. If that happened to me, I'd be freaked out, but you handled it pretty well, apparently.
I would have been freaked out if it happened at a client. Could you just imagine if that happened at a client?
Yeah, that would be bad.
It would look bad on you regardless of whatever you said. It was like, you should know. Anyone listening, heads up.
I'm trying to think of something that bad that happened to me over the years. I would have talked about it on the show, but the worst I can think of is my dog dropped a deuce on the floor of one of my clients' offices, but that's about it.
Oh, and he took the sculpture, right?
Huh?
That's a great story. Sand sculpture. What was it? It was this different shades of sand or something like that. Don't you remember the modern art piece that was in the common office space that you shared with somebody else for a while? And there was...
I can't remember this story. You better than I do, apparently.
Yeah, and your dog did... I think it was sand.
And he knocked it over? Tell me more about the story.
You had to rebuild it. I don't know if you went to Home Depot and replenished the sand.
Oh, I do remember that. Yeah. Yes.
All right.
Holy cow.
Yeah, tell it to the listeners.
It was salt, I think. I had to...
Yeah, it was salt.
Yes, it was a sculpture. Yes, it was like a sculpture with spoons and grains of salt meticulously placed over it. And his tail was just like, whoosh, just knocked it all around the place. And I think I tasted it I was like, what is this? And it was salt. So I went and gotten salt and I spread it around as best I could.
And that was Loki, right? Loki.
Yeah, Loki's still around. Loki's
still ticking.
A menace to society. No, he's a good guy. He's ticking though. Yeah, that's funny, man. I forgot about that story. I gotta go back to the archives and listen to that, see if I told it well.
Yeah, no, it was a great story. Sticks out in my mind. I think Joe, he's not here, and he better not put anything in the chat if he's still listening. But I think he has a story about a chair with one of his employees.
Yes, I do remember that story too.
The chair not surviving the tech visit.
I wish I had an episode recall where I'd be like, oh, that's episode 42.
Yeah. AI will be able to figure this all out someday.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
This isn't about my dog, but...
Not a hooray for Loki story?
No, but my daughter actually, which... It's something that I feel like I 100% should absolutely know, but I didn't. Mm-hmm. And I was telling her when she told me, I was like, I'm going to talk about this on the show. She's like, oh, great. I get mentioned on your show. But have you ever had periodically, this happens on the computer sometimes as well as the phone for me, but have you ever had a rogue unread message where it's like it shows you have a badge, but you can't find it anywhere, or you can't, you have to scroll and some random message now appears as unread? Yeah. It's really and infuriating to me when that happens. So I was like telling her, I was like, I can't find this message. And she was, oh, why don't you just filter by, I'm looking at it right now, unread messages. And I'm like, what do you mean? I don't have that filter. She's, oh, you can go to the messages settings and choose to filter unknown senders, which is the slider to filter unknown senders. But in addition to that, when you turn on that filter, you then get known senders and unread messages and recently deleted. Wow. So I was, what? She's like, dude, you're the Apple guy. What is going on? I don't know, but I didn't know about this. And that's actually amazing. So I went in and I changed it, and I went to unread. I found the rogue message, and I was like, you're my tech person.
I'm going to do that as soon as I get off the phone.
Did you not know that either? Because I felt like I really should know that, but I didn't.
Let me see if I could filter by filters. Yeah, I got unknown and unread here on my iPhone.
Yeah, so you have it on.
But I have, even though, and I thought this was a problem with the M2, that Mac Mini that I mentioned, that's headless. I've got 3 unread messages that are showing up on my Mac Mini, and it's in sync. It's supposed to be in sync with my iCloud. So
yeah, I've noticed. I opened up my iPad Pro that I don't really use anymore. I opened it up for the first time in months, and it had hundreds of messages and hundreds of emails, and they didn't go away for quite a while. It took a while for that sync to occur and actually really go back. And it would drop down a little bit and then it would add up again. And I was just watching it. And I think it took a better part of a day for them to actually go away, which I thought was a little, I don't know, long for that sort of thing to happen.
Yeah, I've seen that anomaly too, but this is something that's always on. So that's a weird thing. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But I'm glad we're on this tangent, because I wanted to bring up, and I listened to quite regularly Mac Geek Gab with Dave Hamilton, and he's been on the show. And I've been a big fan of that show for years and years, doing what we do, because you can always pick up something that you forgot or just some random tip that they're talking about. And I listen to most of my podcasts at 1.5 or 1.75. So occasionally my wife will get in the car with me and one will kick on and she just thinks I'm completely out of my mind. She's like, I might be certifiable at this point. But I just feel like I can't listen to people talking so slow anymore. If I play a YouTube, it's usually 1.5 because they love, if they're showing you something to do on YouTube, they love to stretch it out, make something that they could show you in 2 minutes, 10 minutes. So for whatever, more views or the user engagement, YouTube must measure. So if you have a 2-minute video, it probably doesn't carry as much weight as somebody staying with you for the full 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah. They do stretch out those. Like I just always scrub forward really fast. And I'm just like, where is it that I need to know this?
So here's what I heard just the other day on Mac Geek app. So on your iPhone, the Apple support app, let's see what happened. It disappeared there for a second, but on the Apple, holding it for forget it. So the Apple support app, you can go in there and you probably know this, Sam, because you're an Apple guy, you're Mr. Apple. And right on the main page, you could tap reset password. And then it says help someone else.
Yes. I did. I wrote something about that. That's why I knew about it.
Oh my God.
Crazy, right?
And it's been there supposedly forever.
Yeah. Forever.
And I can't tell you how many times I've been down the knucklehead road with clients, either regular recurring clients or one-offs where we're trying to help them and we're jumping through hoops trying to reset the Apple password. How often do you, now I'm going to remember it forever, but how often have you used that?
I can honestly say maybe 3 times, and most of it was testing a few years ago. And that was just to see all the iterations of what could happen if you had like an emergency contact and things like this, and what would occur if you type in someone else's Apple ID. But I haven't had a big cause to use it as of late, but it is a helping hand for sure.
Most of the people I come in contact with that are residential and even business, nobody knows what their Apple password is. They think it's their login password. It's just, and they flail away. And sometimes they get locked out or they just flail away. And it eats up a huge amount of time. So maybe I should forget about that. But I could have used it a million times over. So I'm not going to forget it this time.
You can be excited the next opportunity to use it.
Yeah. So I had something that happened to me today. It was a light day. And it has very little to do with tech, but it's just experiential, what a marvelous world we live in. So I was looking for a book. It was a music book. It was almost like a textbook. And it's been out of print, right? And so you can't get them online. If you can, when they become available, the several $100s. And it's not like I definitely had to read this book, but I wanted to see it because it would scratch this itch for me. So I called up Yale, the Sterling Library, because I don't live too far from Yale, and they had it. And so I said, do you lend out to members of the community? And they said, no, but you can get what's called a desk pass, and you just fill in the form and we can let you in the next day. You could be let in anyway to the Sterling Library. It's not like there's high security. Right. And are you looking for a book? We can put the book aside for you. So I said, yes, I showed up today. I walk up to the desk. They handed me the book. And I said, is it okay to take a photograph or two or do a little scan for research? And they said, oh, you can go over there. And they have I'd like to say a wall of machines, but they have several machines in one area. And supposedly there's another bank of machines in another area. And they have a full scanning setup for books. You just go in there and just rip off your book. You have to do it manually, page by page. It's not automated. And then there's this a computer that's dedicated for scanning with a big scan button. So I scanned all 140 pages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but you're getting 2 aside. So it took like about a page a minute or whatever, even less. And I was able to email it to myself right there. Just put in my email address. And it just blew my mind that this was available, that first of all, the university's not enforcing any sort of copyright laws. Yeah. And they do have that disclaimer by the scanning machines. You're required to adhere to copyright laws, as Joe would say, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so that was pretty cool. The only thing was it appended my scan. So it actually came in 4 chunks, 4 PDF chunks to size it up so that people wouldn't have email bouncing back. And it probably did that automatically, which I thought was pretty smart as well. And then I just opened up Acrobat Pro and combined them all and did the optimize. So any kind of skewing of the page, but it was pretty fantastic.
So they don't stop you from basically ripping off an entire book. I guess it's for personal consumption, but still, like if you were to borrow it, let's say from the library, you would still read it and give it back. So it's that same concept in a way, but it's kind of interesting that it's just no holds barred.
I didn't think you could do that. I thought I'd have to surreptitiously maybe do it in like chunks or go behind a wall and start. And I was going to use the scanning app I use. And that's another reason why I brought this up. And I've used this for years and my kids have used this. It's Scanner Pro.
Yeah, I use that too.
Yeah. And Scanner Pro has the ability to actually scan a book. So you can hold it in landscape, and it'll give you both sides. And it's smart enough to know. And as you go through the pages, it'll append. So that's what I thought I would have to do is like manually try to do. And you know how it's hard sometimes to make sure you have the phone square and get it to click off.
Yeah.
So I thought it was going to take me several hours, but I was in and out of there pretty quickly.
That's all. And I love Scanner Pro, by the way. I will just give another shout out to that one. I use it all the time when I get a lot of documents from, especially medical, when it's like paper, oftentimes paper.
Yep.
And I want to file it away and not put it in a file cabinet. I'll scan it through Scanner Pro. It's a great tool.
Right. Initially, the other thing I wanted to mention, this is another tip. It's right there on your computer. Why don't you know about it? Silly tech guy. I use Spam Sieve, as I mentioned. And so when they would hit my inbox and then they were like thrown out, I'm checking it on the phone. So I know I've got to use Splashtop as VNC into my Mac Mini to take them out of because they were identified as junk, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got back home. And so some of them were still sitting in the junk file. And I'm looking on my Book Air M3 and I'm identifying 4 or 5 of them. And I'm identifying them as being not spam. And it's just churning away and nothing's happening. And my computer looks like it's underperforming. So I force quit mail. I reopen it. It's not what it is. And so finally it hit me. I go into power options in system settings. And I had selected low power mode always.
Oh,
yeah. And as soon as I said never, it just never started to work again. My computer was operating normally. So sometimes for the weirdest reason, you turned it off or you needed to extend your battery life and you never remember to turn it back on. And that's probably what happened to me. I was on a trip or something.
I've done stuff like that or like I put in a specific DNS value or something and I forget to take it out, or I'm like, why can't I connect here? And yeah, I've definitely made those mistakes before too.
You're starting to disappear in my screen there, Sam. You're getting lower and lower.
Yeah, I've been standing a lot of the day at my standing desk. Usually I take turns standing and sitting, and I've been standing all day. So now
do you have pajama bottoms on? I highly recommend it.
I'm fully dressed. I'm fully dressed.
All right, good.
But it was hard to put. So I recently had shoulder surgery on my right shoulder, which I think the audience does.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's right.
So I had shoulder surgery on this shoulder. And then yesterday I got my vaccines in my left arm and I can't raise either one of my arms very high right now. It's like killing me.
Wow.
But, and the shots, they're a little painful, but thankfully with my shoulder surgery, it's one of those things where I know this is a tech podcast, but I'll get into medical for a moment, where they don't know 100% what's going on inside, even after running scans, until they actually go in with a camera. He said it's all, very likely that you're going to have a big tear and we're going to need rotator cuff surgery and all that stuff. But as it turned out, when I woke up, it was just they shaved off the bone spur and took out some scar tissue and other stuff. And yeah, I'm doing a lot better. I'm out of a sling already. If it was a rotator cuff, I would have been in a sling for 4 to 6 weeks. So I was out in a day and a half out of my sling. So I'm really thrilled.
So was it orthoscopic surgery?
Yeah. With just the two nabby guys going in there and just.
So there were 2 incisions that were made.
Yeah. So I have 2 on my shoulder here, which I'm not going to show the audience, but yeah. And every once in a while, a certain movement feels like stabbing pain. But and I asked the doctor, you got raw stuff going on in there that hasn't healed inside. Certain movements will really hurt. So anyway, that's my little. I did that right after one of I think our last recording. The next day, I went in for shoulder surgery, so that was fun.
Right, I would have been up all night with anxiety.
Yeah,
and the other thing I'm thinking about, those little scars, once they heal a little bit more, maybe you could work some sort of a tat in there and make them like 2 eyes or something like that.
maybe like fish eyes.
Yeah, fish eyes.
My sister's big on tattoos, but I'm not.
Yeah. So as we wind down, as we're coming to that bewitching hour, do you have any TV recommendations? And I'll share a couple that we've recently been watching.
Oh man, TV. We just finished. What did we? Oh, The Penguin was excellent.
I heard about that.
Excellent show. Yes.
Yeah. And you're saying show? It's a series?
It's
I thought
a series.
It was a movie.
Yeah. It's
what network?
It's on HBO, or if you have Prime with an HBO connection. And it takes place between, there was a movie called The Batman that came out, which isn't part of the regular universe. And it takes place in between that and the next Batman movie, which is Colin Farrell does an amazing job. And Kristen Milotti is also in it, and she's awesome as well.
And how many episodes is it?
I think it was 9, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
All an hour in length.
So like the Watchmen series.
I haven't seen that.
Starring Alan Hancock. No, it was Watchmen. It was based on that comic about the...
Yeah, I never saw the series, though.
Oh, fantastic.
Really? It was good.
Oh, hands down. I mean, sci-fi. Hands down. As a matter of fact, I watched it twice. The first time I watched it by myself, and the second time I told my wife, you have to watch this. This is epic. I felt the same way. I watched it twice, the movie, the episode series with The Leftovers.
About that's a series? It was a movie, right?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
With
yeah. What am I thinking about? The series about the rapture with...
Oh, yes. Maybe that is actually called The Leftovers as well, or something, but something similar.
Yeah, the movie with The Leftovers with... He's terrific.
Yeah.
Paul Giamatti, speaking of Yale, because that's where I was. Yeah. And his dad was the president of Yale for a number of years.
Wasn't he a baseball commissioner too?
And he was baseball commissioner. Yeah, he's passed on, but pretty amazing guy. So the 2 series that we watched, and they're both on Apple. Apple should send us money now, is Bad Sisters. And that's one my wife watched. And it's about these 5 sisters, 4, in Ireland. Do you know about this?
I've seen the clips for it. Yeah.
It's good. It's good. You have to stay with it a couple of episodes. It's a little bit of the ladies like it, but I think the men would like it too. There's Lucky Charms.
I love the accents, and
it's terrific.
There's one woman, an Irish
Sharon Horgan.
Wow, you probably she's blondish.
Yep, that's her.
Yeah. She's been in some great movies as well.
She's terrific. Yeah. So she produced this. So this is one of her pieces. And apologies to people who don't tune in for this. The good point to turn off, but we only got a minute or 2 left. She is also producing something coming out. I believe it's a movie about Amanda Knox. She's not playing Amanda Knox.
Oh, okay.
And this is the American who was illegally imprisoned in Italy for a crime that she did not commit. She was a foreign exchange student.
That was a crazy story.
Crazy story. So Sharon Horgan is involved in that. And the other series that we just started watching and we're late to the party on is The Silo, which is also on Apple TV.
Yes, we're on season 2. That's a good one.
Yeah. Yep. So we're going to be starting season 2 soon.
Oh, watch Shrinking on Apple TV Plus. That's a great show.
The initial actors that are on that turn me off. Who are they?
Harrison Ford. I think Jason Segel is his name. You don't like them? You don't like Ford?
Harrison Ford he was better in his heyday. He's a little too grumpy as an old man.
Well, he's grumpy in that show, so it fits. He doesn't really have to act. Next week, people can tune in for more show and movie references and recommendations. Maybe that's we'll with Joe not here, we'll just turn this into Siskel and Ebert.
There you go. I think this is going to be maybe our last show. I know that Joe has a holiday message he'd like to share before the end of the year. So he'll be coming back for that when he's feeling a little better. We'll all be here and we'll share our holiday thanks to one and all, friends and foe.
I look forward to Joe's holiday message every year. Can't wait.
Me too. I look forward to editing it all the time and trying to make sense of it. It's like the Zapruder film. You have to
back into the left.
Back and try to find the grassy knoll in Joe's delivery.
Nice.
I'm not sure what that means, but in any event, thank you, folks. Thank you, Patreon, for listening to another episode of Command Control Power. Tune in next week, and we'll have lots more good stuff for you. And also in the coming year, we've got lots of fun stuff planned. So we appreciate you being there and being with us. So thank you.
Jerry does his voices of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all the time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam is on the road again, phoning in from a hotel.
At least we know where I am.
Half a century combined of Apple